As your species becomes more technologically advanced and these breakaway civilizations become more able in their penetration into the cosmos, this presents a problem to the cosmic neighborhood, because now there is this dark new species which is going into the neighborhood and taking its darkness and its dark agenda with it. And this is something that you don't want moving in next door to you, because eventually, at some point, as their technological ability grows, they will see they have some opportunity or some advantage, and they will start impeding or foisting their dark agenda on you in your region of the neighborhood, where it has all been about the love and light of the One for a very long time, shared by your community. So, it is of interest to us that hi, I'm Muzz iEvolv and blah, 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 blah. I actually wonder if anyone listens to this sort of opening monologue I have at the start of each video, because it's so similar every time. But here we go, this is how it goes. My book is selling well. Actually, that's not true. It's not selling, I'm not selling heaps. Really what I want to say is it's getting reviewed well. The people who do read it are having a great experience from it. And they're telling me that they are able to channel with much greater ease. And they're kind of surprised at how quickly they've become good and how great the quality of the channeling is, and also the experience is much more rewarding. My other book, it's a bit lonely recently because I haven't spoken about it for a long time. But anyway, this, where is it? I'll put it on the screen. Here it is. So that's my original book, and it's still really a great book and so pertinent for the modern times. In fact, as I realize now, I was kind of ahead of my time when I wrote it, because it's becoming more relevant now. So if you haven't read this book, now is a great time to read this book. If you would like to have a private channeling with me, that's something that can be done. If you go below, there is a link going to this book and a link going to this book, and also a link going to a private channeling inquiry form. And on to today's topic. Why are aliens in our skies? Greetings and thank you for the question. Why are aliens in your skies? This is a question which has a multifaceted answer. Let us begin in this way. Let us first discern who is it that you are seeing in the skies. Yes, there are some alien species in the sky, but the technology you are witnessing, which you would call UFOs, which are unexplainable, that does not seem to be Earth origin technology. Some of this actually is Earth origin technology. It is technology which has been hoarded by those at the elite class, those that you could say are part of the apparatus of the Cabal of Darkness. And they have reverse engineered technologies which they have got access to. Also, they have been shared technologies, and they've been able to build craft which you would describe as not of Earth origin. And therefore, when they are seen in the skies, the initial reaction is, this is an alien craft. This is a body which does not come from my planet. However, this is not always the case. So, continuing along this particular segue, we will say that there is already what you would call breakaway human civilizations, meaning that there are humans which are not of Earth origin. Now, we make this distinction because humanity does not exist only on this planet. There are other forms of what you could say human beings. However, in regard to the Earth human, there are civilizations of Earth humans which are existing outside of your planet. What we would describe as breakaway civilizations. And this has been made possible because there are technologies available which the greater bulk of your species do not have an awareness of, that allow for very fast and distant travel. And this is possible because these technologies have two fundamental qualities which allow for this type of interstellar travel. The first is the ability to draw energy from the ethers, the zero-point energy. So it is already known by the scientists, the physicists in the Earth-human field, that just in one small area of empty space in front of you is enough energy to power many cities for many years. And therefore, it is almost the same as saying that you are immersed in an infinite field of energy. And when humanity learns to tap into that field, then great things are possible. Because now the limitations of available energy, or the limitations of cost to achieve many of the things that could transform your planet, have now become very accessible, have now become something which is not a burden or obstacle at all, that can be easily surmounted. And the second of these technologies is anti-gravitic technology. So the ability to be weightless, to be frictionless. So when you combine these two technologies, you have a craft that can travel at an ever-increasing speed because it is traveling frictionless. And the way that this is achieved, or one of the ways, or particularly the way which makes it possible to travel very great distances for your particular species at this time, is to create a gravitational field around your vessels which are not part of the gravitational mechanics outside of the vessel. And so there is a frictionless environment because it is not rushing against the air or particles or any other forces, but is instead suspended in a net zero environment. And therefore, as long as this net zero environment moves with the craft inside, it is doing so absolutely frictionless. And as it is a frictionless environment, then there is nothing impeding acceleration. So theoretically, these craft inside these bubbles could accelerate indefinitely to the point of the speed of light. However, this is not something which has been achieved yet by your species. However, your species have craft which we would say could approximate half of light speed, which is very, very, very fast. So, when you combine these technologies, you have a craft which can travel at an unending acceleration and fueled by an inexhaustible fuel supply. So now you have craft that can travel great distances very, very fast. And so those who have access, who have hoarded these technologies and kept them secret from the rest of your species, have gone into the solar system and set up colonies within the solar system, and have also gone beyond your solar system and set up small encampments where they are researching or discovering how can they exploit this new environment they have access to. Because they are going under the mentality and the operational bias that they are not so much explorers, but they are merchants, they are industrialists, they are capitalists, and they are using this advantage to bring to them greater wealth, power, and authority. So, the other form of aliens that you're seeing in your skies are what you would say are interstellar beings, extraterrestrial beings, and also interdimensional beings, beings that exist in other dimensions. or other matrices from where you find yourself. And the reason that they are here is, as we said, manifold. It is multifaceted. So let us go through some of them. We can't describe all of them because there are some species here that we are not familiar with or we do not necessarily have a relationship with, so it is not entirely known to us. But they are not violating what we would say are the universal principles of observation of a less developed species. And so we do not pry into their business and they do not pry into our business. And if the opportunity ever came for us to cooperate in some way, then most likely both parties would welcome that interaction. Because of the alien species here that are in your skies from an observational perspective, that is, they are observing. Generally, it could be said that they are benevolent and they are anthropologically driven in their interests and scientifically driven in their interests, and also driven by their love of the all, their desire to help the one fulfill its purpose. And one of the ways that can be achieved, and the one's purpose is to know itself to completion experientially, is to assist developing species to find their way. For developing species to themselves expand into this realization that they are the one, so that the one can have an ever-increasing experience of itself. So, even though this is their motivations, and the anthropological motivation is because all species at some time were much less developed than they are now, especially those that have the capacity to be spacefaring for interstellar or interdimensional travel. And it is of interest to them to observe species that are developing so they can make extrapolations or they can make assumptions about what their own species may have been like during its own developmental stages. And also it is a fascinating confluence of events on this planet that you are going through a very predictable expansion of your capacities as you increase in your intelligence and in also your science and technology. But this is overlaid on an entirely different spiritual understanding of self. And so it creates a very exotic cocktail of presentation for your species. Also, your species is still very much natural in it has not started toying with its own genomic code. Although this has taken a dramatic turn in recent years because the mass medicinal actions that were taken as a response to the illness that was a global happening. And then this has begun the shift of your genomic code. Now, your genomic code is somewhat of a cocktail itself because you have been altered many times throughout your history. In fact, your very beginnings are in some way a manifestation of genetic manipulation. However, what is unique this time is that it is manipulation that you have done to yourselves. It was not a third party, but rather yourselves that were the instigators of this. But we would like to make the distinction that this facet of yourselves that were responsible do not necessarily view themselves as the same species as you. And so they are not doing it to themselves, including them, meaning that as a desire to be of benefit to the entire species, but rather as a method of victimization of the lower class or the underclass that they separate themselves from in their feudal mindset, or even, you could say, from their farmer mindset, where they feel that they are the lords and ladies of all the resources, and the underclass, meaning you, are the resources, as in the animals, the cattle. So, this makes you of interest for those species which have done considerable alteration to their own genetics, to see what a species looks like in a more organic presentation. And then there is also this experimental dynamic which is occurring in your solar system. And there are many species which are a part of that, and more species are joining frequently to partake in this as they start to learn about, and the word spreads about what is occurring here, because what is occurring here is incredibly interesting, and it is incredibly unique, and it is understood that there is much that can be learned, particularly from the juxtaposition of what you are now and what you will become post-ascension. This transformation is going to let the galactic community understand some very new revelations about what is possible within the one, and also what is possible for themselves. What it means to be of the light, what it means to believe you are of the darkness, and so on. Many of these very rich experiences which they themselves did not have access to because of the way they were birthed into creation in their very typical default manner, and the way that you were very uniquely, very unusually birthed into creation. Then there are also those aliens that have been here for a long time. There are those who live within the caverns of your own planet. Some that could claim they have been here even longer than you have. As your species presents now, they were present as a sophisticated species that were evolved in technology, evolved in spirituality, involved in their mentality and their emotionality. And they had decided to, you could say, set up an encampment here to further the development of their own civilization away from the region of space where they had originated, because in that region of space there was growing tension between the neighborhood and a particular species that had chosen the philosophical pathway of darkness. And as those that choose that pathway typically do, they had chosen a selfish path. They had chosen to live in a way which was beneficial to them, with very little regard to how it impacted the community around them. And as they were a technologically advanced and powerful species, it was difficult to manage them. It was difficult for the community to veto or request with any effectiveness that they did not do some of the agendas they had in mind. And this particular civilization, they have decided to set up the encampment within your earth. They are pacifists by nature, and they did not wish to be drawn into this conflict. So they made the decision to remove themselves from that region where they originated and move to this solar system and put themselves within your planet. Now, you may say, how could a species just leave their home? Well, it is a species which has lived for a very long time, and so even though they had been many generations in that particular system, it is not the system their species originated from. In fact, their species is very distributed throughout the cosmos because they achieved high levels of awakening and realization and technological capacity and spiritual understanding and so on a long time ago, from the perspective of the way that humans view time. And so they had spread out across the cosmos some time ago. And therefore, this idea is of shifting to some other region where they can continue to grow, or where it is the next place for the coming phase of the development to be most nourished, most possible, is very much part of their culture. Is very much something which they have a clear historical perspective of. And so when the time is right, it is not so difficult or dramatic for them to make this transition. And also, there are encampments on your moon. Your moon is an artificial satellite, and there are encampments on the far side and also on the near side, but they are shrouded. They cannot be seen from the Earth because of technologies which you could say are cloaking them. Also, that is an artificial body, and it has been built to be occupied. And so within the moon also, there are encampments of alien species. Also, there are alien species here that are in vessels which are of such size that they can fit, you could almost be said, entire civilizations or very, very large communities within these ships, and they can travel throughout the cosmos, taking everything they need with them. So they do not make a trip and then come back to resupply or come back to return home, but rather the spacecraft itself is their home. So, you're probably getting the impression from what we have said so far that there are many, 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 many aliens within the vicinity of your planet. And this is absolutely true. And it is not necessarily because there is something unusual about that, because there are regions in your galaxy, for example, where it is very dense with alien species, particularly near the galactic center, because it is at the galactic center where sentience first formed and technology was first created, which made possible to be spacefaring and so on. So around the galactic center, it is much more dense with alien species. There is much more of a community. There is much more of the opportunity to go to a particular region, and there are many, many different species all commingled, all doing their business or living in the same regions or doing trade or exchanging ideas and so on. But when you go to the outer regions of the Milky Way, then this is less so because it is further from the galactic center. So there is now a decreasing density of spacefaring species. Yet around your solar system, it is a hot spot, you could say, where there is increased density. And the reason for the increased density is because of what we said, this very unique occurrence which is occurring here. And there is intense interests. And there are many who are very far from here, too far to be here, who also have a very intense interest. And some of them are here, you could say, in a remote viewing capacity. And others are here through telepathic connection with humans in the Earth-human field, and also with some of the aliens that are here. And then also this information is being shared and spread to those that are relevant throughout the cosmos. So there are alien species which are very far from here, which have never been here, yet are aware of you, because this information has been shared with them, and it is shared as an act of letting other species have a increased understanding of the all, knowing what is possible, realizing that there is a presentation of the one which they most likely never thought could be possible. There is a species that does not know it is connected to the one, that does not know that they individually are connected to each other to form the single being of many parts, that do not know they are the light and nothing but the light. This is incredible. How wondrous is the one that a species such as this could exist in the vastness of the all. So, this is a revelation. And then it begins to open up questions such as, what would it be like to be incarnated as one of these beings? What would be the experience of traveling through the process of revelation from this initial presentation to a being which is awakened as we are? How wonderful could that be? How expanding would that be? And so on. So, you are, as a species, opening the minds and the hearts and the eyes of the entire intergalactic, interstellar community because of the very unique choices you have made to be birthed into creation as a human being. This is a choice that you made. And this environment is a difficult environment. This is not the kindergarten as you often perceive of yourselves or describe yourselves. You are a kindergarten because you are just getting so many things wrong. You are still so violent and unaware and unrealized and so on and so on. But you are born into this pre-existing context in a state of very deep amnesia. So it is only very powerful and strong entities that can enter into this environment and survive an entire lifetime. So, you are not seen as being children, but rather you are admired for having the strength. You are admired for having the courage to be born into this environment. So, now you may be wondering, or a very obvious question is, if there are so many aliens, why is there not more contact? Why is it not openly a phenomenon of your experience that you are interacting with aliens? The first very obvious answer to that is that if we were to come, then we would put ourselves at great risk if we were to just land and say, hey, here we are. And this is not something which we are presenting to you as a supposition, that it is conjecture, but rather there is a long track history of aliens that have come here from a sense of universal love, from a sense of benevolence, from a sense of wanting to direct humanity, particularly because humanity started splitting the atom, started detonating nuclear devices on its own planet. And there were those within your region, within your neighborhood, that wish to come here and help humans understand how dangerous that is for you, for your planet, and also for the very fabric of reality. Because in a sense, it is the destruction of the reality which the one had created, because you are literally tearing apart the particles of this context. And yet, some of these aliens, when they did come here to share this loving, benevolent understanding with the human race, they were treated as hostile and shot from the sky. Their technology stolen, and the occupants of that technology sent to laboratories where they were examined and tested and treated not as sovereign individuals that represent the love of the one, but as an opportunity for advancement for the human race, or rather for those that are at the elite level who have access to the power and authority to be part of that examination. So, having witnessed what is possible if we are not careful enough, then it is the widespread decision that it is best not to come that close into the environment at this time. However, the time for very open and formal first contact is drawing very near. And it is something most likely you who are watching this now will be witness to in your lifetime. But when it does occur, it will have to be very controlled because of this very dangerous element to proximity with your species. Another reason that we keep a distance and we can be seen in the skies, but we do not necessarily make contact, is because there are universal principles about karma and about interaction with developing species. And Gene Roddenberry, when he created Star Trek, was very close to encapsulating this idea, the prime directive. And the prime directive being that you do not interact with a developing species. You do not share them your technology, you do not let them be aware that such technology exists, and so on. Because it can have a detrimental impact to the development of that particular species. And this is quite accurate. And we have witnessed, even with your species, that there have been technologies shared with you by some species which operate more on a selfish or philosophical pathway of darkness, ideological philosophy. And they saw that there was some advantage for them to get the cooperation or even get access to human beings as a resource, where they were harvesting human beings to use for their own means, and in exchange to be allowed to be in the environment and have that access without being continually harassed by the abilities of the human being. They decided to share technology, to give humans technology. And this increased the divide between the elite class, the Cabal of Darkness, and the rest of humanity. So as a net effect, it has had a very detrimental effect because humanity as a whole suffers greatly. Part of the reason being because of this divide in technological ability. Those that are at the upper class, this Cabal of Darkness who hoard the technology, their technological abilities, you could say, are centuries ahead of where you currently are. So, it is understood that this is not something that a benevolent species of higher technological ability does. It does not share it in the way that has been shared, so it is hoarded. If it is to be shared, it would be shared on an entire civilizational basis. But as long as this power structure exists on your planet, it is very difficult to do, because if those capacities were given to representatives of the greater bulk of humanity, they would very soon be stolen and then hoarded and then silenced into secrecy that this exchange ever took place. So, another side of this phenomenon is also that there is a karmic impact on us also. If we were to share technologies with your species and then those technologies were misused, were stolen by this Kabbalist class, then it would have a detrimental impact on the greater bulk of humanity. Because this is always the case, because this Kabbalist class, everything they do is about parasitically nourishing themselves from the greater bulk of humanity, which is you who is listening to this now. And it's all about exploitation, it's all about parasitically feeding, it is all about creating grief and anxiety and all of the dark emotionalities from this lower class as they view them. And so any technology they get access to will be at some point, in some way, directed in a malevolent fashion towards this greater bulk of your species. So, when this occurs and there is this mass suffering, those that provided that technology have now incurred some karmic debt. Some need to balance what has occurred such that they can progress seamlessly through their expansion. So, For that reason, also, technology is not shared. Interaction does not occur in the way that perhaps most of you or more of you would like to occur. Let us finish in this way. Understand that you are not alone, and there is a very large community which are, you could say, rooting for you, because the greater bulk of humanity hasn't chosen the pathway of the darkness, and it is having a dawning awareness that it resonates more with the light. It has experimented with the darkness. It has been forced into the darkness by the unified malevolence, but are breaking free of this dependency, are breaking free of this control, where the oppressor and victim, or the slave master and the slave relationship, is starting to break down. And the greater bulk of humanity are starting to come to their own mind, are starting to make their own decisions, their own value assessments and judgments, and starting to realize and identify with themselves that they are the light, and quite possibly nothing but the light. And therefore, they are, if they were to live demonstratively of this new understanding, virtuous beings that share love and light and all of the wonderful good things which are part of the fabric of the one. And on the other hand, the unified malevolence represent a quality which is not wanted within the intergalactic neighborhood, because wherever it goes, it creates problems. And as your species becomes more technologically advanced and these breakaway civilizations become more able in their penetration into the cosmos, this presents a problem to the cosmic neighborhood, because now there is this dark new species which is going into the neighborhood and taking its darkness and its dark agenda with it. And this is something that you don't want moving in next door to you, because eventually, at some point, as their technological ability grows, they will see they have some opportunity or some advantage, and they will start impeding or foisting their dark agenda on you in your region of the neighborhood, where it has all been about the love and light of the one for a very long time, shared by your community. So, it is of interest to us that this spreading of the darkness does not occur, and that humanity awakens, and so there is a transformation of this philosophical standpoint. And so it will no longer be this duality or this dichotomy of I am the light, I am the darkness, what am I? And also those who have chosen the philosophical pathway of darkness will be stopped in their progress, and we are expecting this wave or this boom impulse which will come out from your species will have or even an effect on them in the far distances where they find themselves now in their breakaway civilizational encampments. And will begin a transformation of them also, because you are all connected. So, our presence in the skies is, in a sense, casting a vibrational hue over your planet, which is helping you to find your way towards the light. And it is done in a very passive way. So we are not necessarily coming into your environment and teaching you, although there are those we are in communication with. And that is because there is an agreement which precedes the lifetime, as it is for the channeler, that there would be a connection, that there would be communication, that there would be sharing of information. So it is not an invasion into the heart and mind of the individual, but rather it is the fulfillment of a pre-life agreement. And also, we wish to demonstrate to you that there is another way. Because when you see our craft in the skies, our craft and those that are sharing this same sense of benevolence, it is noted that there is no heat signature coming from our craft. And our craft move in ways which seem impossible unless our craft is outside of the gravitational field. And so we are able to change direction so dramatically that it is only possible if there is no inertia within our craft. We are not swaying side to side as we change direction because we are outside of the gravitational field. There is zero inertia within our bubble. And this is demonstrating to you that there is a different way, that there is something possible, yet why isn't it in our own environment? Meaning, from the perspective of the human being, why don't we have these abilities? And this is going to begin this investigation. And the investigation will inevitably lead to the realization that humanity does have these technologies, but they are being hoarded by the elite class. Now, you may think, well, if these technologies were made available, then do I really want to travel out into the cosmos? Is that really something that is going to benefit me? But these technologies have a much more impactful use than just interstellar travel. Because if you have weightlessness and you have limitless free energy, then can you imagine what engineering feats you would be able to accomplish on your own planet? Everything on your planet is incredibly overpriced, is inflated in the amount of resources you must provide and the amount of toil you must participate in to even drink the water, or to eat food, or to house your family. The cost to you should be so small that you can fulfill that cost by spending only a very small part of your life actively earning an income or earning whatever resources that were required to make that trade, to have access to all of these things which you require to have a beautiful, peaceful, happy, prosperous, fulfilling life. However, because energy is metered through the classic energy systems which you are utilizing as a species at this time, then when you buy something such as a bottle of water, when that water was extracted, an energy company was paid. When that water was transported, an energy company was paid. When that water was bottled, an energy company was paid. When the bottle was manufactured, an energy company was paid. When it was labeled, an energy company was paid. When that label was printed, an energy company was paid. Think of every single small detail of every single consumer item in your environment. For every single one of them, the energy companies were paid hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of times just for you to receive a bottle of water in your hand. Can you imagine how inflated the price is because you do not have free energy? And therefore you must spend the bulk of your existence toiling just to have the privilege to pay for the basic necessities which allow you to survive until tomorrow. This is an unheard of paradigm from the perspective of most of the alien species that are here. Because most alien species have discovered free energy, and then immediately it was shared with the entirety of their species because they view each other as themselves. They love each other as themselves. And they wish to serve the one, and this is done by being a being of the light and acting virtuously at all times, in all situations, with all other beings. However, that is not what has occurred here. So, when you see us in the skies, and you understand we have traveled vast distances, or even that we have phased out of our dimension and into your dimension, this has been made possible through the consumption of very large quantities of energy. And that energy has been provided by the One in the very fabric, the very contextual experience of your environment. There is virtually, basically, an unlimited supply of energy. Think about that the next time that you hear about us, or that you see us in your videos, or you even have a sighting yourself. And through this curiosity, this desire to know, how are they doing it? What is their energy supply? Then this will draw that into the experience of the greater bulk of humanity. And the elite Kabbalist class will no longer be able to hoard it, because you will literally manifest the breakdown of their secrecy. And this is beginning now. They do not use these technologies only for interstellar travel. They are using them against you on a daily basis. And it is time that they are stopped, and also that this technology becomes part of your experience. And when it is, the transformation that you will experience as a species and also as an individual will be absolutely profound. And it is at this point you will understand that you are a species, as a species, will be accelerating so rapidly in your expansion, in your spiritual growth, in your realization of self as the One, that you are moments away from the quantum leap which has been promised to you. So you can step into the next version of what it will mean to be a human being. Not as a lesser species, but as an equal, as brothers and sisters to all of us. And then you also will fulfill the role of communicating to individuals on distant planets through telepathic communication, sharing your understanding, being seen in their skies, and continuing the process of the crop blossoming, blooming, harvesting itself, and tending the next crop of the developing species of the One's perpetual garden. Thank you, and we love you. Thank you for making it to the end of a channeling session. I'm going to tell you a story about something that was a big part of my childhood that I don't really speak about very often in these stories, and that is my brother, my older brother. If you're watching, bro, it's about you. So we were 3 years apart. He was 3 years older than me, so he was always bigger than I was. And we lived in the same bedroom right up until he left home. He left home when he was 18, so I was 15. So for 15 years of my life, I'm living in the same room as my brother. And you can imagine there was all kinds of bickering and disagreements and so on, just living on top of each other like that. So, which story will I tell you? There's so many of them. I'll tell you a story about something nice. It's a nice story. My brother's always fancied himself as a singer. And even now, he's approaching 60, but he's still taking singing lessons. And he's actually a good singer. It's can't be denied, he actually is a good singer. And I never had the gift of singing. I could never really sing well, but he sounds really quite nice. And so when we were kids, we would be in the bedroom and we're in bed by 8:30. Lights out, no discussion, that's it, it's all over. And if there was any noise, parent comes to the door, what's going on in here? Shush, go to sleep. And so we had to be very clandestine and secret if we're going to make any noise. And so the vacuum cleaner used to be kept in our room. It was kept under our bed. And so you got the vacuum cleaner pipe And so our beds were on opposite side of the room. So I was on that wall. No, he was on that wall. I was on this wall. And it just so happened that the vacuum cleaner pipe was long enough to reach from his bed to my bed. So what we do is we get the vacuum cleaner pipe, and I would grab one end and I'd put it against my ear. And my brother would be on the other side of the room in his bed. It's at night time in the dark, and he would going, woo, 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 whatever song. He would be singing just quietly into the vacuum cleaner pipe, and I would be piping it directly into my ear, just like enjoying the relaxing and dulcet tones of my brother singing. And we could do that very quietly, and Mum would never know. So that's actually a good memory. I have many good memories of my brother. My brother and I are tremendous friends. He's like one of the dearest, closest people in my life, my best friend. So, you know, we have a few horrible stories about stuff we did to each other. We've got lots of lovely stories as well, and that was a lovely story. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.